Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and I had recently made a video talking about storing Distress inks and Distress Oxide inks, and it was sort of hinted at, and then I got it confirmed by Ranger that the Distress Oxide inks need a little bit more special consideration when being stored. So I wanted to redo the video mentioning some of the tips that I have for personal storage, but also what they said about storing Distress Oxide inks. So I have Distress ink and Distress Oxides. As you can see, I store, certain things I do with them are very similar, other things have to be different. To keep my blender foams, the little round blender foams, I have one for each ink. They're not very expensive. It works for me. Some people prefer to have one tool with a pad, like all the purples together. The only thing about that is right now, since there's oxides and regulars, you'd have to have one for the oxides and one for the regulars, because my understanding is, and again, I'm not Ranger, so if you have any specific questions, please do reach out to them, but that you don't want to dip your oxide blender into your regular pad or your regular blender into your oxide pad, because getting the pigment ink into the dye ink might not be so good, etc., etc. So I personally would separate them. I don't know that you have to per se, so that's going to be kind of like more of an at your own risk thing. And my recommendation would be to have at least one blender and foam for each color family, like all the purples, all the reds, all the blues, etc., for oxides, and then for Distress inks. I actually think it's much easier to just have foam pads for each one, because you can store them so easily, and then just have a bunch of blender tools. Right now I have 6. It's probably too many. I used 4 for a long time and that was fine, but every once in a while I would be using a few more than 4 inks, sometimes up to 6 inks at a time, and so it was kind of easier just to have, and the tools are pretty inexpensive, especially if you get a sale at, a local big box store. So to keep these foam pads on there, if you have the mini inks, which the Distress inks come in, the oxides do not, will not. If you are holding out for mini Distress Oxides, they are not coming. That's what Tim Holtz has said repeatedly. So I just want to mention that. These foam pads fit perfectly behind those ink cubes. And I don't have any mini Distresses. Well, technically I think this one is. It came in a crayon kit, but the foams go right in there and you don't have to add any Velcro or anything, so that's really convenient. But for these large pads, if I were to turn it over without the Velcro, it would just fall off, so I'm putting a little piece of Velcro onto my pad, just like the Velcro that is on your blender tool. Now, I have bought the Velcro in the past, and sometimes you can buy Velcro that is sticky back, and so it's already pre-sticky when you peel up the back. I have found that that does not stick. If I keep pulling this on and off and on and off and on and off, eventually this Velcro just comes right off. So just using the sticky that it comes with, I have found personally is not enough. Hot glue, not enough. I'm recommending Krazy glue, super glue, something really super strong, because you're gonna be pulling off that pad probably 100 more times, so you want it to stay. I personally just go ahead and hot glue them when I first get the pads. I don't bother to, wait till it falls off or anything like that. When you do super glue, and I mentioned this in the other video, I don't have any to demonstrate just because, I've already organized all my oxide inks. And when you put the super glue out and you glue this down, I tend to recommend to wait a little time for it to dry rather than to put your foam pad right on it after you glue it down, just in case some glue has come out the edges. You don't want to super glue your foam to it, and you want to give it some time to set, because if you start trying to use it, pull it up, it might kind of break the bond a bit. So that's my recommendation. Wait a few hours to a day and then put the foams on. So that's one of my tips for keeping your Distress Oxide inks in a way that are easy to use. So the big thing everyone's probably wondering is, like, what's special about storing the oxide inks? And that is that despite what I've heard from Tim Holtz, and I'm not trying to say he's wrong or whatever, I emailed Ranger and I asked, is there any special consideration in storing the Distress Oxide inks on their website? It flat out says in frequently asked questions, you can store Distress inks, the traditional Distress inks, on their side or flat, and that's how they recommend storing them at Ranger. You can really store them any old way. They said, however, with Distress Oxides, because there is pigment in them, and storing it on its side like this, the pigment could separate and run to the edge, which is traditional with the pigment inks. Pigment inks, they usually recommend you don't store on their side, that there could be some separation. Not to say that there will be for certain, but just that they said there could be, so they recommend storing them flat. Which, wasn't ideal for me because it takes up a lot more room to store them flat. However, to me, they're a bit of an investment that I'd like to protect. So I had already put the label on the side saying the name of the label maker. That's not very helpful now they're stored flat. Now they're stored flat, I can just see what color they are. So it's kind of a bummer that they take up a bunch of space like that, but I really, really, really enjoy the quality of the inks and definitely think it's worth it. So just something to keep in mind. Store your oxides flat as per Ranger. I will even post a picture of the email from them just so you can see. I'm not just saying it. It's not word of mouth. I emailed them directly just because I was curious. And then I will show you briefly how they are in my Ikea Alex unit, but that's going to require me to move the camera. So I just want to show you one other thing first. And you probably all know about this, but Jennifer McGuire makes these cut apart ink swatches where she puts the name and the type of ink, and then you can stamp your own image. I have a flower from Newton's Nook Designs that I use for all my ink swatches. So here's my traditional Distress ink swatches. And they're not really meant for solid stamping, but this does give me an idea of what they look like. And then I did my oxides as well. I think Jennifer McGuire swipes the ink as opposed to stamping it, so it's really kind of up to you. But I did also swipe the same ink, so here's Ice Spruce, and here's Ice Spruce on black. And that was just kind of to remind me that you can put Distress Oxide inks on dark paper, and it'll look a little bit different as you can see. But, I just think it serves as a nice reminder. It kind of gives me an idea of what it will look like on dark cardstock. And so this is personally how I'm choosing to do it. These are coin pockets, but again, this system is totally Jennifer McGuire. I will link her in the video description, not trying to take any credit for this, but just mentioning that I find this really helpful, and I recommend, if you haven't heard of it, to give it a try. It does take a while. It's a little bit of investment to buy the coin pockets or whatever, but I really like it, and I think that it's worth it. So I do that for both of my sets of Distress ink, oxides, and regular. So now I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to try to show you my Alex unit. Might get a little shaky because I won't be on my tripod anymore. So here is my Alex unit, and as you can see, one of the top drawers has all of my Distress inks, my Distress Oxide inks, laid out flat. They do not fill the whole drawer. You could layer them up. You could do 2 layers of them, and they would fit. However, you would be a little harder to see the colors and rummage around. I might do that as there are more colors available and they no longer fit just in this drawer. However, right now, 24, more than enough room for 24 inks. And the top Alex drawers, this is the Alex wide rolling cart. The top drawers are a little bit thinner, so I took advantage and used one of those drawers as opposed to using one of the deeper drawers down below, which are perfect for my Distress inks. Here is the drawer with my Distress inks. As you can sort of see, it's not quite focusing on the labels, but there are labels on the side that say all the names. I know some people prefer colors, and I believe Jennifer McGuire or Christina Warner has some resources on that, so definitely check them out. But for me, the color names are usually quite enough for me to know. I kind of have in my head what certain colors look like. So I have them all standing up on their sides. They're generally grouped, like all my pinks are in the same bin because they are these plastic bins inside of the drawer. And as you can see, quite a few Distress inks fit in here. I have my whole collection of Distress inks in one drawer, and I have all but one of the Distress inks. And then in the back of the drawer, as you can see, are my re-inkers. And there's another bin in the back which has some re-inkers and all of the tools and some finger daubers, etc. So hopefully this has given you some idea of ways to store distress inks, and I wanted to make sure that I told everyone about the Distress Oxide inks just so that you don't have any trouble with your investment. Again, I'm just spreading what I heard from Ranger directly in case it's helpful. I'm not an expert. I'm not saying storing them on your side will ruin them. I'm just, sharing that tidbit of news for those who find it helpful. All right, so that is it for my video today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, including Distress Oxide ink tutorials, techniques, or distressing tutorials and techniques, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day.